When America builds more detention centers, thousands of lives are swept into the machinery of deportation. This is not just a story about borders, it's about the line between security and humanity.
On July 19th, the Wall Street Journal reported that the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, is racing to build additional migrant detention camps nationwide. This move follows ICE receiving a new $45 billion funding allocation to expand capacity from 40,000 to 100,000 beds by year-end. Accordingly, ICE is focusing on developing large-scale tent facilities at several military bases and prisons managed by the agency, including a 5,000-bed center at Fort Bliss, Texas, and other facilities in Colorado, Indiana, and New Jersey. An anonymous official stated that ICE is exploring multiple options to increase capacity, including the use of military bases as detention sites. Additionally, senior officials at the Department of Homeland Security, including Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, have expressed a preference for detention centers operated by states and local governments, rather than private prison companies. However, the agency declined to confirm specific details about plans to expand the capacity of these facilities. During a press conference last week in Florida, Noem stated that she is in discussions with 5 Republican-led states to build detention facilities inspired by the alligator Alcatraz model in the state. However, she has not disclosed specific information about those states.
We have, since President Trump has been in office, arrested over 286,000 illegal aliens. We have also recognized that 70% of those individuals have had criminal charges convicted, they were convicted of them, or they have them pending against them. By far, we have focused overwhelmingly, day after day after day, on bringing in the worst of the worst and getting them off of our streets. Notably, we have arrested 600 known or suspected terrorists off of our streets, and we've arrested over 2,700 known members of the Tren de Aragua gang and gotten them out of the United States of America. Now, in front of me, you also see a table filled with paraphernalia, with drugs, with guns that were brought in and confiscated by these outstanding officers behind me and many others. We have 25 kilograms of cocaine, several firearms that were seized by our heroic DHS law enforcement officers over the last 2 weeks here in Florida. Yet, thanks to the courage of our ICE and HSI officers, these drugs will never be able to poison our families. They'll never be on the streets of our communities again, and these firearms will never be used to hurt an innocent citizen. Yeah, alligator Alcatraz is held to the same standards that all federal facilities are, and in most states and in other jurisdictions, federal facilities are upheld to a higher quality of standards than what some state and local jurisdictions have. So any issues that were there have been addressed. It's a fantastic resource for us to be able to utilize in order for a detention facility to repatriate people back home to their home countries. And what I would say that this is Alligator Alcatraz is a state-run facility run on our behalf, but we're incredibly grateful for the partnership that we have with Florida. I'm having ongoing conversations with 5 other governors about facilities that they may have. You know, I haven't asked those governors if I can share their names, but announcements will be coming soon. As you all know, we need to double our capacity in detention beds because we need to facilitate getting people out of this country as fast as possible and to sustain our operations. But those governors have been fantastic. I will tell you, they are all Republicans.
A CNN survey conducted and published on July 20th revealed that 55% of Americans polled said the Trump administration has gone too far in deporting undocumented immigrants, a 10 percentage point increase compared to February. Opposition among adults identifying with the Democratic Party rose to 90%, while only 15% of Republican supporters shared the same view. 57% of survey participants said they oppose plans to build new detention facilities capable of holding up to 100,000 undocumented immigrants, while 53% oppose the multi-billion-dollar budget increase for the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, as part of the recently passed Big Beautiful Act. Nearly 60% of respondents opposed the Trump administration's efforts to end birthright citizenship. Courts are reviewing a presidential executive order that bans birthright citizenship for children born in the U.S. to parents residing illegally. 59% of Americans oppose the arrest and detention of undocumented immigrants who have lived in the country for many years without a criminal record.
They had no coordination going on whatsoever. They were just kind of cuffing people and just sending them away without any information at all. So they arrested me. They asked, they just asked what I was doing eventually. And they asked me if I was a citizen, and I told them yes. I told them everything. I was a citizen, I worked there, and they didn't care. They still never told me my charges. And then they sent me away. They sent me to a place in downtown LA without even telling me what I was arrested for. It was almost instantaneously. The moment they broke my glass, they sprayed me with OC and they just dragged me out of the vehicle. I don't know if they opened the car or if they dragged me out of the window. They just broke my window and sprayed me and dragged me out. And then it took 2 officers to kneel on my back and then 1 on my neck to arrest me, even though my hands were already behind my back and I was covered in OC spray. They didn't allow me to shower. They didn't give me a phone call. They didn't let me speak to an attorney. They never told me what I was arrested for. Just that I was, they never told me anything. So the entire time I was in there, the 3 days, I was covered in OC spray and tear gas the entire time without a shower. Just kind of after everything that had happened to me and just everything regarding to that point, and just missing my daughter's birthday and everything, and not knowing what was going to happen to me, not knowing if my family knew where I was at or anything.
A 19-year-old named Derlis Chusin was reunited with his family in New York after being detained for nearly a month in Texas. The New York Legal Assistance Group, NYLAG, Chusin's legal representative, stated that he was unexpectedly arrested during an immigration court hearing in New York City in June. Initially held at 26 Federal Plaza in Manhattan, he was later transferred to Texas. Melissa Chua, co-director of NYLAG's Immigrant Protection Unit, confirmed that Chusin had entered the country legally and applied for asylum in accordance with the law. His detention was unjust, as he had no prior criminal record.
We are so excited to welcome Derlis home. He was taken a month ago in immigration detention, violently taken from his family, held at 26 Federal Plaza for many days in horrible conditions, and then transported to Texas, far away from his family, community, friends, and school. And you can see how much they've missed him, because we have a number of supporters from his home, from his community, from his school here with him, waiting for him today.
Our office represented him in a habeas matter as well as a bond hearing, and he was granted bond by a judge. With the wonderful assistance of the Envision Freedom Fund, we've been able to pay that bond, and he's on his way home now. So we're waiting for him to get off the bus so that he can reunite with his family finally.
We are so relieved that he's here, but it shouldn't take a team of attorneys to get somebody who has never committed a crime, who has only been an upstanding addition to his community, out of detention and back. He was only going to immigration court to seek the protections that he is due under the law and should not have been detained in the first place. Derlis, like many people who were allowed into the United States legally to seek asylum, then did so. He applied for asylum timely, which people are supposed to do before arriving in the United States, for being in the United States for 1 year, and he did that. And then many of the same asylum seekers in the same position are supposed to go to immigration court to continue to litigate their case, which is exactly what he did. And on the day that he went to immigration court to litigate his case, he was detained without any notice, without any process, and then separated from his family and moved.
I was Derlis's English teacher for this year, and he's just such an amazing kid, and just to, for him to have been taken like that was devastating for all of us, and just seeing him back now is, it's really, really incredible.
I can say that at least a few days here in New York City were really difficult. There wasn't enough food, there wasn't enough space to sit down or lie down. Their conditions were extremely cramped. In Texas, it was really difficult for him. He's 19, and he was held with men who were sometimes twice his age, and it was emotionally difficult for him being so far away from his family.
Well, now he gets to go back to being a kid. He still needs to pursue his asylum case. He's going to be applying for asylum in court, or pursuing the application that is already filed in court. We're going to work to get his case transferred back to the local court here, since this is where he will be. And hopefully he just gets to go back to having a normal life in his community and be a teenager.
The expansion of detention capacity and stricter immigration control may be justified by the goal of protecting national security, but it also poses significant ethical and legal challenges. As detention capacity increases, it is critical to ensure that fundamental human rights are not sacrificed for the sake of numbers or political pressure. In a society governed by the rule of law, justice cannot solely rely on building more detention centers, but must also stem from how individuals are treated within that system.